Okay, Baraka, take away. Baraka, go on.
Baraka, do we start now? Has everyone joined?
I think we are early. It's not yet 2:15.
Sorry, my mic was off. And I was just talking. I'm like, can you hear me? And I'm like, no one is talking to me. I'm saying we have everyone here. Dr. Ehud is here. We have everyone apart from the last one of our family gift who's joining us any minute now. He's at the car wash, so he's going to join us any minute. At 2:15 on the dot we start. So Emma is going to do a round of introductions. So I'd actually say that we stop. Is this? Maybe we can start the link on YouTube in a minute from now. So maybe we can. I don't know if someone who's recording or Jenny, if we can just stop for like 2 minutes and then give everyone a quick brief.
Yes, I'm recording from my end.
Okay, let's just put it on hold. Okay. Yeah, so we're all here, and how it's going to run is Emma is going to do a quick round of introductions for the webinar or the deep dive. Do introduction of color, do an introduction of Inquisitive, and then she's going to give a brief bio of Dr. Ehud Gashugu, who's joining us. Dr. Did you say Ehud or do you say Ehud?
Hi, Baraka. It's Ehud. Ehud.
It's Ehud. Okay.
Yes.
It's me and my fake English, eh? Okay. Okay. So she's gonna do an introduction of Dr. Ehud Gashugu, and then Dr. Ehud is gonna do sort of like a keynote for a couple of minutes. Then once you're done, Daktari, we can hand over back to Emma. Then Emma is going to introduce everyone to join us, and just sort of like do a self-introduction. I don't know how she wants to do this in alphabetical order or whoever appears first on our screen. So just a quick introduction of who you are and what you do. And then she has a bunch of questions she's going to do. She's going to do 4. So she has a couple of questions that shared on email earlier today. So feel free to chime in also if you feel like you have something to say. It's not very, I don't want to be very strict and saying this question can only be answered by Kenneth or it can only be answered by Brian or Mercy. If you're here and you have an opinion or you want something to share, by all means do so. We're going to run for about half an hour. My brother Gift is here, and then we're going to invite Jonathan. Jonathan is joining us from, is it the East Coast, Jonathan? Your mic is off.
Yeah, I'm in Boston.
Yeah, he's
Good
in
morning,
Boston.
everybody.
So good afternoon, sir. So he's going to do a sort of like brief presentation of a project we've been working on as Scala, MasterCard, and Karibu Digital, where he works. So I'm just going to ask everyone to keep your mics off and let you want to speak, but as much as possible, please keep your camera on so that we can see you. I've seen the lighting is good. Yeah, and I guess that's it. So have fun, have energy, be vocal about it as well. And yeah, this is going to be amazing. And thank you all once again for coming. So if you can, let's have our cameras on. I'm going to go offline. If you need anything, you can WhatsApp me or text me. Or, yeah. Cool. Any questions before we start? No? Okay. Good. Emma? Okay, Emma's run away from the cow background. Gift Karibu Sana. And yeah. If you need to share your screen, I know Jonathan needs to share his screen a bit later. Dr. Gashugu, I don't know if you want to do a presentation on your screen or you just want to talk through.
Yeah, I'd prefer to talk through.
Okay, that's fine, but we'll have you come now on, I presume, sir.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's it, guys. That's it for me. All the best. It's 2:16. It's a good time to start. Emma, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Baraka, for organizing this. And I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to yet another fantastic session that is inquisitive. My name is Emma Mumbi Maura. I am a design researcher, or rather I sit at the intersection of design research and product management at Kala. And I'm gonna briefly introduce what Kala is and what we are all about. So Kala is, the name Kala is borrowed from the Zulu language, and it means to launch or to provoke. And therefore we are a team of passionate problem solvers that are driven by one mission, and that is to lead Africa's digital transformation. So what we do at Kala is we combine rigorous problem-solving methodologies as well as cutting-edge digital tools in order to build or to create a new generation of services, of products, of business models, as well as experiences that one, address the current needs of our African continent, and two, invoke the future growth, yeah? So Inquisitive means, or rather what Inquisitive is, it's a learning platform that was created by Kala in order to impart knowledge on our society by way of one, conferences, symposia, publications, webinars, and deep dives such as this. And today's hot topic is about gig economy, and we are all going to take a deep dive into that. So I'd like to ask everyone to settle down, and I hope we can all have a good time from this. So COVID-19 has shed so much light and has brought to the fore what gig economy is. And worlds apart from the traditional economy, where full-time workers, one, rarely change their positions, and two, have one goal or focus, and that is to build their lifetime careers. Gig workers instead, in the gig economy, enter into formal agreements with on-demand companies so as to bring services to the company's clients. And I'm gonna give an example of who gig workers are. These are independent consultants. These are independent contractors or independent firm contractors, the online platform workers, as well as the temporary workers. And so in a gig economy, what is commonplace is the flexible and temporary jobs, where on-demand companies tend to bend more towards hiring the freelancers, the independent consultants, just the examples that I've just given about gig workers, and instead of hiring the full-time employees. So what we've been doing at Kala with regards to the gig economy is, for the past few months, we have been conducting research about the quality of life of gig workers. And this we have been doing in partnership with the Caribou Digital that Jonathan will be introducing shortly. And therefore this webinar is just part of a series of discussions or conversations in which we plan to disseminate our findings, and also to engage the policymakers, the platforms, as well as the gig economy. Well, let me just say this, that the purpose of this conversation is to create awareness and understanding on what gig economy is to the public, and also explore what the current innovations are in this particular space, what the opportunities, the challenges, as well as the benefits of the gig economy. And in our amazing array of panelists today, it's a blend of gig workers and experts in this gig economy. With us today also, we have Dr. Ehud Gashugu, who will kickstart us with a keynote speech about the gig economy. But before that, let me just give a brief profile of who Dr. Ehud is. He's a leading voice when it comes to understanding the gig economy. He has been part of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance from as far back as 2011, where he was the project director for the Kenya Youth Empowerment Project. Dr. Gashugu is currently the project director of Ajira Digital Project at KEPSA, and his team is currently working to establish the linkages for youth getting into the gig economy. And part of the approaches that him and his team are using include 4 areas. One is the domestic market pathway involving government sourcing, private sector outsourcing to gig workers. Two, they are also engaging in multiple actors to establish how best to support digital intermediaries for blue-collar economy. Three, the local platforms that provide either gig work or act beyond being job boards. And finally, the international market through global online labor platforms and targeted partnerships for outsourced distributed workforce models. Dr. Ehud holds a PhD in business administration from the University of Nairobi and is here to give us a keynote address on what exactly the gig economy is and what the exciting opportunities are therein. So Dr. Ehud, over to you. Kindly kickstart us.
Thank you very much, Emma, and to the team from Kala as well as Inquisitive, the gig ecosystem players around in this forum today. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are extremely glad to be part of this very important. We are very glad to be part of this very important conversation, which sits very close to our hearts. So on behalf of Ajira Digital Program and the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, I wish to really express our gratitude to the organizers for this forum, and more so extending our invitation to us to deliver this keynote address. It is a pleasure engaging with you on the manifestation of the fruits of the seeds sown by the fourth industrial revolution, brought by the emergence of the internet, of course, making communication much faster and much easier. So the gig economy has thrived that way and is a promising opportunity for all of us. And so this afternoon, as we deep dive into the conversations around this great gift of the internet, we would be discussing about innovative solutions, elements that have been brought about by this whole digital transformation. So great is the revolution in lifestyle that we are all saying that we are actually on the back of the fifth industrial revolution, which is really a great mark that has been propelled largely by the transformation that's really happening in the digital space. So the changing work dynamics is altering the relationship between workers and those giving the work. Increasingly, freelancers or independent professionals are getting work from across the world digitally, carrying out those tasks remotely, submitting them online, and getting paid through online platforms with very limited human intervention in this transaction. This is the new normal for work. As this gig economy takes root in the part of our world, it is crucial that it is nourished by collaborations and constant inclusive engagements to enable it to thrive. And in this regard, I do wish to salute Kala, Karibu Digital, and other partners involved in making this a reality. Allow me to briefly introduce the Ajira Digital Program, which is core and very much in line with the conversations that we're having this afternoon. So Ajira Digital Program is an initiative of Government of Kenya and currently in partnership with the Mastercard Foundation's Young Africa Works initiative, and is implemented by Mobliz, who are the training partners, and Kenya Private Sector Alliance provides the demand-side interventions. So at KEPSA, we aim to promote digital-enabled jobs, both in the private and public sector, and this includes nurturing digital work platforms, supporting outsourcing of work, and linking young people to digital jobs. So we are currently working across the board with all ecosystem actors advocating for Kenyan workers on international platforms, both work platforms, blue collar, white collar, as well as any companies that are willing to outsource work to either our local platforms or nationally. We are also already witnessing remarkable improvement across the board with innovations from young people due to this increased access to technology and opportunities. Through KEPSA, we are also raising the profile of online work platforms by engaging with local online work players and amplifying them through our network of members. KEPSA's mandate is to support government effort in improving business environment, of which the digital ecosystem and economy plays a critical role in this effort. We are also playing a key role in policy regulation by influencing for favorable, conducive business environment that supports growth of digital ecosystem. Or ours, again, is an end-to-end intervention, and we exist to build bridges over obstacles that hinder young people from accessing digital opportunities. On the demand side, we do this by providing tools, training, and mentorship to the young people to put them in good stead to seize those opportunities. On the demand side, we are actively looking for opportunities for young people. We strike strategic partnerships with various organizations to unlock these opportunities and to keep young people aware about this opportunity. It's one thing to have the opportunities ready, and it's another thing for people to know that those opportunities exist and also support them in accessing those opportunities. So we have a linkage aspect that then ensures that there's constant flow of information. There is sufficient infrastructure that enables young people access these opportunities. So ultimately, the Nigeria Digital Program seeks to position Kenya as a choice labor destination for multinational companies by providing skilled labor, while growing and encouraging local companies and public sector to create digital and digitally enabled jobs, which is very important for us to have our own domestic solution to the problem of youth unemployment and how gig economy can play a critical role in this endeavor. So far, we have had a good run. We are greatly encouraged by the achievements that we've been able to deliver to young people so far. Our achievements can actually be clustered in 4 main ways. One is around creating awareness around gig work and online work as real work. This is not an easy message to pass. This is also not an easy task to convince someone that doing a gig work or doing online work can guarantee them regular and steady income. But we are purposing to do that. We have purpose to do that, and we continue to do that. Equally, Ajira provides various youth employment services, as I have earlier mentioned. We have trained well over 50,000 young people. Again, just in the last three months, over 3,500 young people have been connected to various digital jobs and gig work, as well as working with ecosystem players to grow them. By end of the year, we target to have 18,000 young people connected to various work opportunities in the ecosystem. At the ecosystem level, we are continuing to strengthen the capacity of various actors and looking at how they can unlock digital and digitally enabled jobs. We work, again, even in various subsectors, e-commerce, online platforms, job boards, blue-collar platforms, among others, to address bottlenecks that hinders them, their growth, as well as the ability to increase revenue and create jobs for youth. So our work really is to provide this catalytic effect to platforms to grow and be able to achieve their goals. Lastly, we work with both private sector entities as well as public sector entities to promote outsourcing as core business strategies. Business process outsourcing is critical. And as such, as we see how the companies are adjusting their strategy towards that, we have also seen stream of work coming out of that and allowing young people to work. A classic example is a program we are working currently with the judiciary, where we are looking at supporting the e-filing intervention through transcription of work, data entry and scanning. This is just a classic example of how one small digitization effort can result to numerous work. So this intervention will see over 5,000 young people accessing jobs in the next 2 years, which is not a small number. However, we do appreciate this is a drop in the ocean. And the more we continue to look at these opportunities and expand them, the more we are going to unlock opportunities for young people. We are also equally co-creating solutions with different private sector companies to promote outsourcing and hence increasing work available for young people locally. We definitely see this deep dive today significantly contributing to this goal. It has not gone, of course, definitely without challenges. So as we entrench ourselves deep into the gig economy and into the online work, the biggest drawback, especially at the supply side, is accessibility of internet. So far, we've received feedback from young people around the limited participation, even on free opportunities for training or resources or content. But then internet has become an issue. So we continue as a program to see how we can scale up that, how we can address this core need for young people to be able to participate effectively in the digital and gig ecosystem. The other challenge, of course, has been limited access to devices. We are very happy to see the changes that are taking place, the innovations that are taking place. And of course, as we continue to see new content coming through, gadgets then become very important. And so as a program, we are also looking how can we enhance access through creating of infrastructure that will allow young people access to opportunities that are coming through from the technological revolution. Most importantly, and for this forum, as we continue to see the growth of the gig economy and appreciate its dividend, social protection has remained a big issue. And the question on how we provide safety net solutions to gig workers is critical, because that is the first step towards creating decent and productive jobs. So we are proposing co-creation of these solutions that targets improving conditions of online workers to access those essential social protection services, including insurance, devices, finance, among others. We sit at a privileged position in this unfolding gig economy in Kenya. We have a ringside seat with a view of the entire value chain, and we have been involved in unlocking numerous opportunities that exist. We see even greater potential that online work portends. And then we call for collaboration amongst all of us to be able to drive this conversation, to be able to drive these innovations in a more strategic and structured way. That way, the fragmentation that does exist, the lack of linkages and coordination would greatly be addressed. Therefore, of course, increasing the outcomes and impact of all our interventions. We have seen careers being built under our watch. We have seen young people such as Karen Nyambura learn and earn livelihoods through the digital online work. We have also seen other people, and today I'm so excited to see George, the Arab guy, who has created opportunity not only for himself, but for others. We have millions and thousands of examples of young people who are changing the course of the river. And we see that this is the true power of innovation around gig economy. Unlike the traditional sectors, for instance, manufacturing, online work has great potential to churn numerous opportunities faster and with less investment. Statistics do indicate that digital economy is growing faster than any of the other sectors. So therefore, then, all of us have a great opportunity to contribute towards this growth. As we reach towards digital government and economy, fresh opportunities are also showing up and coming up along our way. For instance, with this move with the judiciary setting up of virtual courts, what we've seen are really numerous opportunities to do more work and to provide young people with opportunity to contribute to the digitalization process of our government. This is just one example. There are numerous ministries, departments, and agencies that are moving towards that end. And what that means is that ultimately this dividends will trickle back to us as gig workers to be able to take advantage. The question is, how are we ready and prepared for this dividend? So there's a lot of value in collaborating across industries and across sector and aligning and forging partnerships for success. The silver lining is in the COVID pandemic, which has definitely shifted the way we live and the way we interact, both at a commercial level and also socially. And this has increased interest and adaptation of online work and online solutions. So it's time for us to shift our mindset. Permanent and pensionable jobs, the 8 to 5 jobs will no longer cut it for everyone. Reality is those jobs are shrinking and at a faster rate. And of course, looking at even the formal sector where those jobs are, the shrinkage is real. So the message needs to be emphasized that gig work is decent work. And the thing that we need to do is to emphasize this message across our education and training institutions, as well as pass this information to our youth. So we wish you all the very best in the deliberations this afternoon, and we're very glad to be part of this important discussion. So thank you, And back to you, Emma.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ehud, for such an insightful speech. I hope we have all borrowed something, one or two things from that. And so I would like to open, the next part of this session, I'd like to open the floor to our beautiful blend of panelists. And as I had mentioned before, we have people, hardworking men and women contributing to the gig economy within the Kenyan context, and also experts within this space. And before I do that, I'd like to remind our panelists to kindly turn on your videos. And as you speak, kindly just be audible because of the different connectivity issues that we may experience. Okay, so to start us off, I would like to throw a question to Frida. Frida is the secretary for Online Professional Workers Association of Kenya. Frida, karibu sana. And one question I have is, what is going on in the online space, and what are some of the interesting platforms that you have seen in your capacity as a key stakeholder in the online professional work? Frida, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Emma. My name is Frida from Upwork. It's the voice of online workers in Kenya. It's an organization that was started in 2019. So I'm just going to go straight to your question about what is going on in the online space. I would say a lot. Because the online space a few years ago, maybe 7 or 9 years ago, felt like let me put it the way it was, like a cult. It was something that was very secretive. If you knew how to work online, you only told very few people. But then right now, people are slowly getting the idea and understanding what is online. There are different things that have changed when it comes to payment too. I remember there are times there was no way of getting paid by an online client. People had to maybe use PayPal payments and use a different region. But that has changed right now. Payment has come directly to our phones, directly to our mobile, to our bank accounts. And so I would say that a lot has changed, but then again, a lot has not changed. So it's this, in the fact that the skills that we are offering have not changed very much, although people are getting the idea of what the globe is looking for and starting to train themselves or get courses so that they can match the demand. But I feel we still have a long way to go when it comes to tapping the opportunities and the potential of job creation around the online space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frida, for that. Well, before we go into the next question, I think it's only fair for everyone to introduce themselves. Kindly mind the time as you introduce yourself, maybe 30 seconds to roughly a minute for each person. So we can start off with Jonathan. Donna.
Good afternoon and good morning to a few. I'm Jonathan Donner. I'm the Director of Research at Caribou Digital, which is a consultancy focused on building inclusive digital economies in the Global South. And we are partners with Kala on this research that was mentioned earlier. And I'm excited to spend a few minutes sharing some of the findings from that later on, but obviously I'll chime in during the discussion. Thank you very much for having me be a part of this. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Donna. Next, we have Brian Njau. Kindly introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Jao. I am the head of Uber in East Africa. Super happy to be here. As many of you know, Uber is a global mobility company. And I think looking at this discussion of the gig economy, we can never forget transport sector in these reforms. And bearing in mind that 45% of all gig workers are actually one way or another involved in the transport sector, I'm quite keen on actually listening to everyone's views and being able to be part and parcel of providing as much feedback and advice as possible. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Karibu. Kindly, maybe you can turn on your video as you speak so that we can put a face to your voice. Okay, thank you, Brian, for that. Next, we have George Kishohe.
Greetings to everyone that is joining us. I'm grateful to be part of this forum, basically for one simple reason, that when people are talking about gig economy or when others are trying to explain gig economy, for me, that's what I'm living. It's what that puts food on my table for my family and among other few people that I work with on our day-to-day engagement. So I'm very delighted to be in this meeting and represent our brand, which is Errand Sky, basically bringing together young, skilled people in trying to connect them with individuals and companies that are seeking solutions to do with skilled and unskilled errand solutions, both in Kenya and for Kenyans living and working in the diaspora who need solutions for errand services in the country. Thank you, and I look forward to a great time in this conversation.
Thank you for that, George. Next, we have Kenneth Micah. Karibu, Kenneth.
Thank you very much, Emma, and also my fellow panelists. I'm very, very pleased to be here. My name is Kenneth Micah, as Emma's mentioned, and I'm the regional manager for ride-hailing at Bolt. And Bolt is a leading ride-hailing company within Africa and Europe, and we're very, very excited to be part of this conversation, saying that, as Brian, my colleague, mentioned, that, give or take about half of the gig workers really operating within the transport sector, because it's about delivering items, delivering services, delivering, moving people as well, just keeping our cities moving in a safe and affordable way. So super excited and looking forward for all the contributions and also to participate in the questions that will come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kenneth, for that. I had introduced Frida, but I think it's only fair for her to briefly introduce herself to the team. Frida, karibu.
All right, so my name is Frida, again, Frida Mwangi. I'm the secretary to the board of the Online Professional Workers Association, or OPWORK. We're a new organization, not very, just a year and some months old, but we are positioning ourselves as the voice of online workers. We came together as a couple of freelancers, 11 to be precise, and because we see and we know and have experienced the potential that might come along with being in a group, we joined together and started the organization with a vision to create a thriving industry for online workers and also ensure that online workers are actually seeing their wealth creation goals happen. So we have about 5 pillars we are working on, which is advocacy, networking, capacity building, mentorship, and of course, marketing, because that is the one, those are the 5 things we believe if we are able to make them happen, will improve the whole ecosystem of online workers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frida, for that. Next, we have Mercy Orangi. Mercy, karibu.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone who's with us. My name is Mercy Orangi, as mentioned. I currently lead developer relations activities for Andela in Africa. Andela is a technology company founded around 6 years ago or thereabout. And, we are just here to solve one global challenge, which is the fact that brilliance is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not, especially if you look at the field of the, software engineering and the tech ecosystem particularly. So for more than 7 years now, I have worked with software developers and engineers across the continent, and I'm happy to be here because these are the charms of the gig economy, I can say, because as you know, the internet is actually what has brought together the various industries within the country and within the region. So really looking forward to the discussion and happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mercy, for that. Next, we have Naserian Mpeya. I hope I have termed your name correctly. Naserian, over to you.
Good afternoon, all. Yes, you got it right, Emma. My name is Naserian Mpeya, as introduced. I am the founder and CEO of Aliwa Sidai by Nas, which is a makeup company. Basically, we offer makeup services, training, just empowering young girls to just, get a skill or two before anything else. So that's what we do, and I'm very happy to be here to learn from other people and other industries. And yeah, looking forward to moving this conversation forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Naserian, for your contribution in moving the needle. And finally, we have Gift Mwaura. Gift, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to Jonathan, I think in the States. My name is Gift Mwaura. I run an agency called the Dopamine Effect. We are a marketing communications agency. I also work in collaboration with various other agencies just to connect their brands to the consumers through an emotive sort of manner. I think you can tell I'm a gig worker that I'm in the car, I'm actually in transit between one meeting to the other, and then give true testament of what our experience has been so far. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you, Gift. So as we start off, I think we'll start with Gituku to just take us through on what are some of the strides that he thinks have been accomplished by gig workers for the past, say, 5 years as he kickstarts this conversation. Gituku, over to you.
I'm Gituku Ngene from Mexico, and I lead our work around youth employment and innovation in Africa. Over the last 3 years, we've been working with platforms, with platforms, in Kenya to really drive the gig economy. Now, if you look at the gig economy in Kenya, as Frida put it, 5-10 years ago, gig work was something that was very, underrepresented and, just a very upcoming sector. But what we've seen over those, 5-10 years is really, a very catalytic growth of platforms and, across board. So initially we had, some of the global platforms coming in, especially around the transport sector, Uber, Bolt, who are represented here, and really, driving a lot of innovation around that space. But we've then seen, local innovators stepping up and, building homegrown solutions around the economy. And what we're seeing is that this is growing beyond the transport sector, even though it still dominates a fair share of the gig economy, I think at 58% now. But also, spreading to other spaces. So we've seen, domestic workers now being onboarded on online platforms. We've seen fundis, carpenters, etc., onboarding these platforms and providing services. In fact, one of the platforms that we've worked with at Mexico called Link, which some of you might be familiar with, has been connecting, service providers such as beauticians, beauticians, electricians, furniture makers, to clients within the city and across the country. So we've seen that, upward trajectory. And more importantly is that we also see that, gig workers across board can then tap into new markets that they did not access before. So a furniture maker, a fundi in Kariobangi, could now, thanks to gig platforms, be able to sell their wares to, a customer in Nanyuki or Kericho, markets that they might not have accessed before. So that's like a very strong trajectory that we have seen. More interestingly now is we are seeing other service providers really drawing interest in this space and seeing it as a market segment that they can serve. So we are seeing, financial service providers, crowding in and seeing an opportunity to provide services like insurance, savings products, loan facilities to gig workers, which, Frida could attest to, 5-10 years ago was not happening. We've seen, people leveraging, data, data science. We've seen, right now we're working with a blockchain company in the US to see how we can support, cheaper and more affordable payment solutions for, micro workers who are providing services to outsourced work in the US. And so that interest across board is something that we see continuing to characterize the gig economy. And to wrap it up, just to throw out some statistics, a research that we did last year, around the gig economy in Kenya indicated that over the next 5 years, the gig economy will be growing at a rate of 33%, which is significantly large, and that speaks to a sector that has, significant potential, not just, to crowd in services, but also to create, employment opportunities for young people in Kenya. Yeah, so I'll wrap it up at that point, but more to speak, happy to speak about that, later on in the conversation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gituko for that. I'd also like to apologize for not giving you a platform to introduce yourself. I thought I had given everyone, but I hope you can forgive me.
No worries, no worries.
Okay. So we have sorry, just in the makeup industry. Maybe Matthew can tell us what are the benefits of being, like you have heavily contributed into the makeup industry. So what are some of the benefits that you can say you have seen for yourself?
Emma, was that Naserian or Mercy?
Sorry for that. Naserian, this is your question.
Yeah.
This is your question, yeah. Sorry for that.
Okay. So for me, one of the benefits that I've seen, especially in this industry, is the flexibility part of it, where you're independent, you can come up with your own rates and times of work. I'm not restricted to how creative I can get and to the client base that I can reach. So for me, that has actually been one of the biggest thing I'll say that the gig economy has contributed towards my industry. So as long as I have done my work and I've put out there, maybe online, it's very easy to reach a wider range of customers and basically just manage my own time. Yeah. So I'd say that has been the biggest thing for me.
Okay. And then I think I can also ask Gift the same question as someone who's also contributing in the digital marketing space. Can you also say that freedom has been a key benefit as a gig worker?
I think it's the biggest benefit, to be honest. One, you get to determine your own timing, your own costing as well for your clients. So there's always the availability of looking for more opportunity. It's different from a traditional 8 to 5 sort of conference setup, rather, whereby you're working on one account or one business from 8 to 5. At the end of the day, you always are working towards an end month sort of payment. When it comes to something like a gig working sort of arrangement as I have now with consultancy, you can always look for different things to do, but mostly you can always try and see how you can fit more clients within a certain point of time. So for example, one advantage of working for yourself or doing gig economy is you determine your own working hours. So for myself, I start working around maybe like 6 o'clock. I have clients who are in the States who I can able to actually do some work with, and now segment now the afternoon to Kenyan clients. But also there's some clients who also like to do some things during the evening. On a traditional sort of working basis, I'd do an 8 to 5. By 5, I'm done with work and I'd go home. But with these clients, because of the flexibility of time and hours, I'm able to do some work for them in the evening and generally just increase my output and my input based on chums coming in.
Okay. So that is the flexibility in terms of the working hours, as also the freedom to do other things apart from like the gig, the gig work. Okay, that's beautiful. So I'd like to ask George Gishuhi, who is the CEO of the Errands Guy, as an entrepreneur who's created opportunities not just for yourself but also other young people. What are some of the challenges that you can say have been a hindrance to your growth as an entrepreneur? George, are you there? George? Okay.
Mic check, Emma?
Yes?
As we probably wait for George to come in, I just want to add to what Gift and Naserian have actually said about the benefits. And I think like it's something that in this current day and age, people are starting to talk about mental health a lot. And within the industry, this is something that I've seen, has come as a relief. Like people are getting better just in terms of improving their mental health because of the gig economy, you get. So for example, sorry.
George, are you trying to join us? Okay. I think Matthew can just carry on as George fixes his connectivity issues.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, so I wanted to give an example. So for example, like you might have someone who, we know historically, the previous generation probably pressured their kids to come in and be lawyers, be a doctor, be an engineer, and you end up doing an 8-to-5 job that does not give you joy, right? Then someone finds out what their passion is, let's say photography, and they now carry it as a side gig that they have. So every time you're like, you find grace and you find joy in knowing that, hey, I can do a side gig in the evening or during the weekends, I can get an extra source of income. But at the end of the day, it's also, I have seen experience that it's a very good channel to also just improve your mental health and make sure that mentally you're actually also at a good place to continue giving your skill or your expertise to the gig economy.
Okay. So other than having like, how can I generate revenue from it? Because I mean, most of us are just money-minded. How do I create money from my skills? It's also a way of letting off some steam so that we can all contribute wholesomely to everything that we are doing. And these are beautiful insights. Massive thank you for that. Gituku, have you joined us? Sorry, George, have you joined us? Can you hear us? Okay. Okay, I think you're having some connectivity issues with your internet. It's okay. Maybe you... Yes, I think it's some connectivity issues with your internet. So maybe you can mute yourself and then try to fix that as we carry on. But we'll be here waiting for you. So
Emma,
I'd like
to jump onto what Marcy said before.
Yes, please, Gift.
So just to add on to it, I was having a conversation with my dad. My dad worked for Kenya Power for around 28 years. I told him I never worked for anywhere for more than 2 years, right? Just a contrast element of it. And the key thing I remember coming out of that conversation was, number one, he did what had to be done at the time. Right now, circumstances have changed. I mean, I don't have the burden of a family to feed and stuff like that, but
Am I the only one who has lost Gift?
No, it looks like his internet is frozen up.
Okay. Sorry for that, Gift. Baraka, maybe you can mute Gift also, so that we can go on to the next question. So I'd like to ask Kenneth, who's the regional manager for East Africa in Bolt, how is your individual industry currently doing, or rather its contribution to the Kenya's gig economy?
Thank you very much for that question. Very happy to take it on. Brian, definitely we're in the same space, could complement on that. So what we're doing jointly as an industry and also as individuals as well is definitely trying to plug in the gap of urban mobility and making it as affordable as possible, as convenient as possible to convenient and accessible to as many users in the urban areas around Kenya as much as possible. And definitely ramping up the safety aspects that of transport. So one of the deliberate things that we're doing is collaborating a lot with the government to make fair and equitable regulations for the industry, such that, you know, because we appreciate that it's a marketplace and there's definitely interests for the users that need to be taken care of. And there's definitely the interest of the most important bits of our ecosystem, which is the drivers. And, you know, here we're talking about a lot of youth, really, because a big part of our driver population is really under 35 years old. And I mean, it's about 25 years old to about 35. That's a huge portion of the youth. And the interesting thing of it all is that we notice about under 70% of them just work really few hours a week. So they have a lot of other side hustles, a lot of other roles they're doing, possibly within the gig economy as well, and using the platforms to leverage and increase their economic opportunities. And so we encourage that a lot by introducing a lot more flexibility, a lot more marketing, just to be able to promote the livelihood that they're able to make within an hour. And we're constantly comparing what is the earnings on the platform per hour comparable to other gig hustles and to other more formal, more corporate roles as well. And just making sure that an hour on the platform is as competitive as an hour that would have been spent, you know, doing something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Kenneth. Also, maybe a question to Brian Zhao, whom you're both in a similar space, that is Uber, you know, the mobility sector. So Brian is the head of East Africa Uber, and your question to you is, how do you think the government and the private sector can do to accelerate the growth of the gig economy?
Thank you for the question. I think one aspect that I feel I need to emphasize on when looking at the transition into the gig economy is the fact that access becomes a key priority. I think I was having a discussion with a few friends the other day, and we were laughing that we've gone from 6 degrees of separation as a globe to almost 2. Actually, there was a scientist who actually calculated it at around 1.7. And I think what this means is that we're getting to a world where we are more connected. And I think this definitely has a part to play in terms of ensuring that there's actually more access and more demand for the services being provided across the gig economy. That is exactly the same that's happening in the transport sector. We are seeing a world where traditionally you would be able to sort of deal with your own sector. And now you're getting to a point where you're very sure that if you take a trip as a driver on the platform from point A, say Westlands, to the CBD, you're more than sure that you have a trip to go back anywhere else within Nairobi. This plays a part in ensuring that, number one, it grows the market. We've gone from a few taxi drivers being in the country to thousands of economic opportunities on this platform. We've gone from an opportunity where we don't really know what is happening in this sector to a data-driven sector that we can actually provide to the government to ensure that even as we are planning Nairobi, which is currently the case, can we then provide this data to help them navigate more efficiencies towards our roads? So definitely the transition has been, for the most part, quite positive, and we're definitely headed in the right direction. We just need to collaborate a lot more with the government. The regulations coming into play is one aspect of it. The other aspect is actually talking to each other, both in the private sector, but as well as with the government.
Okay. Thank you for that, Brian. You've talked about partnerships as well as lots of collaborative work, and the regulatory frameworks need to be checked. Thank you for that. So a question to the giggers, and in this case, I'm talking to Gift. Naserian, as well as George. Do you consider yourselves as a business or employees? But we can start maybe with George. George, is your connectivity okay now?
Yes, I'm okay now. You can hear me well?
Okay, I can perfectly well.
Yes.
So do you
For
consider
me,
yourself as an employee or a business?
we consider ourselves as a business because based on we are offering a solution in the market. And I believe a business is an answer to some problem that is existing in the market, both to Kenyans in Kenya, both individuals and non-individuals, and Kenyans and Kenyans both living and working in the diaspora that need a number of services or gigs run around the country. And for me, I consider ourselves as a business because, number one, apart from me being employed by Errands Guy, I'm also able, or Errand Guy is also able to offer other more opportunities to both skilled and unskilled errand solutions providers or fulfillers to provide their services using the Errand Guy platform to a number of clients. So for me, I consider this as a business just like any other business.
Ah, fantastic. Do we have anyone else with a different opinion? Or do you all consider yourselves as a business? Naserian?
I consider myself as a business, or rather, I'd cut across both as a business because I offer a service, and then I actually create job opportunities to several people, and I'm also an employee to my own business because I do the actual work. So I cut across.
You cut across.
You get?
So both an employee and
Yes.
a business. Okay, beautiful.
And a business, yes.
Gift, what do you consider yourself?
Is it an either-or situation, or can you sing both sides?
It can even be both, as Naserian has just fronted to us.
So actually, I swing both ways for two reasons. Number one is I run my own business, so I have my own clientele, but I'm also employed elsewhere. I have to do certain work hours to actually make sense. Like I said, I work in collaboration with certain agencies that actually have minimal working hours. So for example, if we come to an agreement of maybe 4 hours a week, that works perfectly well for me. In that capacity, I'm employed, but also I have my own team of employees that I work with. That makes me a business owner and an employee in that sort of way. So I swing both ways, as a businessman, also as an employee.
I'd like to contribute on that a little bit as well. I really like how Gibbs just kind of put it. You know, it's not a either or. It's really speaking in, for instance, with our experience, with what we observe on the data coming, you know, on the drivers on our platform or the partners on our platform. A lot of them, about 3 out of 10, give or take, see themselves as businesses. We have a lot of testimonials of people who actually came into the platform without a car, and right now they own fleets. They actually own 1 or 2, and some of them more than 2 cars. And they have been able to create employment within the same space, within the same ride-hailing space or delivery space. And this is particularly the case. The ratio is even higher for the borders because, you know, the cost of acquisition is much less. So a lot of them view their role as businesses, as just not limited companies, right? But also we have this other bigger fraction that are actually giggers. Somebody will give or take lives in Limuru, works in Westlands. So they will put on the application in the morning and they will get a trip towards Westlands. And that's the only thing he will do in that day, possibly. And in the evening, get 1 more to Limuru. So, so we see a beautiful blend between both businesses and giggers on the platform.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you for that. And maybe we can have Frida as the last person to answer this question. What do you consider yourself, Frida?
So I would say right now a business, but of course when you begin as a giga. We are actually now a limited company, as not Upwork. Upwork is an NGO, but not the one that I founded, that's Kazi Remote, and it's also offering employment. But again, it's not offering full-time employment. It's offering employment to freelancers. So they are also able to choose whether they want to work with us full-time, or they can choose the hours, whether they want to when there's more work on our side, they would come in. When they want to look for work somewhere else, then they have that freedom. So it's a blend too.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have Mercy Orangi, who's a developer relations expert at Andela. You can summarize this session with this final question. What are some of the strides that you have seen being accomplished by, say, software gig workers in that industry?
So I think just in terms of strides, a lot of us here in the panel have mentioned, but for me, I think the greatest thing as I've seen, especially in the tech ecosystem, so with software developers, software engineers, etc., is more around creating solutions for local problems. As in, gone are the times when someone from, Europe, the East or the West of this globe will come to Africa and create solutions for us. We are now seeing like our very own coming up with solutions that work. So I'll give you an example of what I've seen actually in, I think, the past 2 months when quarantine has been on the high. A few of my friends within the tech ecosystem, realized that a lot of the time you'll find that people who own cars always, sometimes, mostly complain about like their mechanics. And they're like, as much as we have insurance companies on one end, we have, individual mechanics on the other end. Like, is there a single source of truth where someone who does not have connection to all these, moving pieces within that industry could come on? And they have now created like a solution. It will be launched in another 2 or so weeks. It's called Carhoot, CARHOOT. And the whole purpose for it is to just make sure that you can, within the dial, within your phone, just dial something, and within the application, you can get all these services. Get a tow truck, get a mechanic, get to import your car or sell your car, what have you. So just back to my point, I think it's all about disrupting the ecosystem, regardless of which industry you are in. And I love that because the gig economy is giving us the time. The fourth industrial revolution is here. We are going online. We are now in a global village. And I think that is what I'd say like the most or the highest benefit overall has been within this gig economy generally.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mercy. So we are now going into the second session of this panel discussion, and we have a presentation from Jonathan Donner. And as I had mentioned before, Kala for the past few months has been collaborating with Karibu Digital and Mastercard Foundation in developing insights about the quality of work, about gig workers. And maybe in your presentation, Jonathan, you can tell us some of the interesting insights about the gig economy as pertaining the youth and the women especially. So over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, everybody. And again, I will share my screen in a minute and go through it, just a few slides. But before I do that, Emma, I want to thank you for drawing out so many interesting questions and for bringing this group together in this way. A lot of what I'm going to show in what is essentially 3 different views of the experience of gig work or platform work are things that we've already discussed and touched on here in this first session. So there's a bit on the actual experiences, what's important to individuals. There's a bit on what kind of constitutes gig work or platform work. And there's a bit on what kind of skills one might need to prosper in this space. But all of these stories have already come out, even in the discussion we've just had. So in a way, one thing you can do is, as you look at the slides, and the people who are listening too can maybe see themselves and see those challenges, see those stories, or see the parts of the puzzle that are important to them in the slides we're going to show. But there's really no substitute for for stories and for firsthand experience and for getting close to what is actually happening. So that's what is, I think, happening in this discussion today. And in a way, the analysis that I'm about to present is a reflection of these sorts of issues and these sorts of conversations, as opposed to something that's going to tell you things that you don't already know. But it's nice to have a little bit of a framework because this is a global discussion. I mean, the sorts of experiences that that we're sharing today are being seen in other markets that are kind of moving into new labor states and have a chance to kind of use gig employment for more broad-based employment opportunities. So in a way, what we're doing with the study is drawing on research that's been talking to gig workers around the world about their experiences. So some of which, again, you'll see in Kenya, and there's a lot that we've been doing here in Kenya, but some of it is being drawn from other places as well. So with that, if you'll let me, I'll share my screen and just a few slides, and then hopefully get back into this this great discussion. Let me see if I can find this. Just to check, are you seeing what looks like a title page?
Yes, we can see the presentation. Great.
Okay, so again, thanks for letting me share this work. And this work is really something that is the combined effort of Kala and Caribou Digital. So again, everybody from Kala who's on this who's on this call. It's been great to work with you on this, and again, there's lots to share. So our framing question from the MasterCard Foundation was, this idea that platforms are changing livelihoods, as we've been discussing today. They wanted us to sort of begin to set the stage on what might this mean for digital inclusion, particularly for young people and for women. My answers, unfortunately, in the next couple slides are going to set up that question and not solve that question, but our next bit of research is going to work more directly on that. So I'll do two things. I'm just going to introduce the report. That's the front cover, but that's not the most important thing. And the second is just kind of frame the results for the gig economy. This is on that website if you want to download it. There's an executive summary and then a lengthy report if you'd like to read it. One of the things the study does is it offers an online resource, which is essentially a database of so far 75 primary research studies, which means 75 research studies where there's interviews or ethnographies or discussions with gig workers and platform workers around the world about the experience of platform work. And so we've done a bunch of coding and filtering and linking, but for those who are doing research or policy who want to kind of dial down onto one issue at a time, deep dive even further beyond the deep dive we're doing right now, this resource is now available to you and to everybody through that website again. And the Kala team did most of the reading and most of the coding on this. So there's a lot here and we want to build on it. But now here are the three views I want to show you on essentially what all this data says if you kind of try to aggregate up what the experience of platform work is. So the first is that there are many elements of the platform work experience. And this is something that we heard, coming from all of that question about kind of what does it mean to you and what are the benefits. I mean, there's a flexibility benefit and an earning benefit. There's a health and safety benefit or a risk, right? And all of these things have positive or negatives. I think that the way to think about it is just to kind of, we anchor it as there's kind of three core economic trade-offs that people make. Can they get access to a job or a market? What does that pay and how much flexibility does that provide? And those things are always a trade-off. If you're on all day, every day, 24 hours a day, you actually don't have any flexibility. It's kind of a fake flexibility. But if you're on 3 hours a day, you've got all the flexibility in the world, and that impacts how much money you can make and all that. So that's that core economic kind of trade-off that people are making. There are some subjective things, just the feeling and the purpose of the work you're doing. And for some people, but not all people, that's being an entrepreneur. We heard that in that other question about, do you see yourself as a business or do you see yourself as your worker? And some of the answers were, well, it depends. And for some it's one and for some it's another. But people can find purpose and passion and meaning in this work without deciding that they are calling themselves an entrepreneur. And we need to kind of understand that as well. And then on the other side of the slide, there's a whole bunch of other things that kind of broadly we call human development experiences, which are part of the puzzle too. And if you're interested in economic development, or you're interested in building more inclusive societies, all these kind of things between social protections, or is there an organization that supports you? And we talked about the trade organization that you guys are starting for online workers. All of these things matter too. And so it's not a simple it's not a simple discussion to figure out kind of how to weight this or understand the experience of platform work. But these 75 studies we found help kind of define that. And you may be able to find kind of interesting kind of research data points if you're interested in this sort of thing in the essays on the site that are reflecting each one of these things. So that's my first point, that there's lots of different elements to the experience. And my second point is, again, I think comes back to this question of kind of, do you see yourself as an entrepreneur, or do you see yourself as a worker, as a worker? And also the fact that there are multiple types of gig experiences. There are multiple types of gig workers. The things I put in yellow are the ones that we might most recognize as being part of the gig economy in particular: micro workers like on Amazon Turk, freelancers like on Upwork, delivery drivers, ride hailing, which we talked a lot about today, and trades and services all have this kind of platform logic on them, and people there can really treat themselves as employees, as workers. But there's also ways in which everything we're learning about kind of living in an algorithm and working with a platform to find your livelihood also affects things like creatives or asset owners like Airbnb. And this is kind of more kind of on the horizon, it even affects how farmers may sell their products to direct to homes, and it affects how small enterprises, large and small, sell through online platforms. And so we suggest, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's this kind of cycle of learning that can happen between being a platform worker and understanding those experiences and being a platform seller, which is why we call this whole thing platform livelihoods. There's also this really interesting dynamic between, those who are working in essentially export markets, staying locally, but working globally, and those who are transforming, kind of local opportunities right in Nairobi or beyond. So hopefully some of you can see each other in this slide as well. And the last thing I'd say, this third view, is a little bit about skills. And for us, I think today we're talking really about the kind of what it feels like to sell in a digital market, to find your job or to sell your products through a digital market. And there's a bunch of skills and capabilities, personal behaviors and competencies that we talked about a little bit that get cultivated through doing this. But that's not the only digital skill that people need. You still also kind of have to be, searchable, and Google Maps needs to find you. And if you're a small business, you need to figure out how to manage your reviews on all of those sites and all that. And there's digital literacies that are more than just that sales that have to happen. And in fact, and I think a lot of people who are on WhatsApp, even during this call, will know that there's a bunch of happening, a bunch of kind of commerce happens on social right now. And the way in which Facebook and Instagram and particularly WhatsApp interact with these other kind of parts of the digital equation are things that those who want to design kind of better training or interventions in this space have to keep an eye on. And these things all kind of blend together in ways that are important both for the individual and then, curiously, also for the platforms, because some of the biggest platforms in the world actually will offer you services in all three of these things. You can do a Facebook marketplace, and you can do your chat in Facebook, and you can appear in their, you can appear in their ads and all that. And so we need to kind of unpack all of that. So just to finish up, I mean, these are like, abstract slides when we should be talking to each other, which we'll do again in a second. But these three views we have on the experiences of being a platform worker, on the types of platform work, and on the practices and the digital practices one needs to prosper, help set up the interviews that Kala is doing right now in Kenya with 4 types of platform workers. When we're going to release that work in stage 2, this is all just a setup. But it also reflects these conversations that we're having today and helps inform for the broader audience out there trying to really make sure that platform work works well for everybody, kind of all these dimensions of this puzzle. So it's been absolutely great to work with Kala so far on this, and we're going to continue to do that in the months ahead. And thanks her again for having me part of this conversation today.
Okay, thank you so much, Jonathan, for that. I'm not sure if I'm experiencing, can I be heard? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, yes, I must be here clear.
Okay, thank you for that. I thought I had some connectivity issues. Okay, maybe one last question to Dr. You have lost me.
No, your video, but it's fine, really. I can hear your audio.
Okay, let me just turn it on. I'm just a bit nervous about the connectivity.
I think you're right. You could just turn off the video because of the connectivity. Kind of froze up.
While she comes back, I'll just mention that another thing I didn't get to bring up is this distinction between full-time and part-time work, whether it's your side hustle or your full hustle, is really important to a lot of people. It impacts how they experience platform work, but also sort of what we ask of the platforms in terms of kind of being that kind of kind of primary employer or supporter or whatever. And I think policy hasn't caught up to that kind of dual dynamic, and we heard a lot of it in the discussion today. We need to kind of figure out how to optimize for both, but it's not necessarily the same optimization.
I don't know if Emma is back, but allow me just to take up quickly. Maybe for Brian and for Mika, Uber and Bolt have grown enormously in this country over the last couple of years. What's something that's maybe stopping you from growing as big as you'd want to be? Is there anything that's a bottleneck? Maybe start with Brian.
Okay, very interesting question, Baraka. Definitely the growth in the past 5 years has been good. I mean, if you think about the 1st of January 2015 when Uber launched, and we launched with UberX, and it was mostly card trips. And then the learnings we actually received of we're in a market where we actually need to consider the fact that card penetration isn't exactly how it is in the rest of the world, to things like, can we have products that suit the needs and demands of the countries you're in, which actually grows to the motto of ideally living globally, but building locally. So we have grown, and when looking at Uber as an example, I mean, we are currently at over 12,000 economic opportunities. This actually goes beyond just the drivers on the platform, but to the support services that they receive across that same ecosystem. The growth obviously is dependent a lot on as well the economy as the economy grows, we also do grow. One other aspect is how digital we actually are. If we look at Nairobi, for example, it's fully digital, smartphone penetration is amazing, but the minute we start expanding towards the rest of the country, there is sort of a hindrance in terms of how can this technology actually still meet the demands of this sector. We are not new to this. We don't take it as a way of saying, no, let's not expand. It just gives us the opportunity to actually innovate. Another example I can give is how we launched Uber Lite, because it's one thing to say smartphone penetration, but what kind of smartphones do we actually have in the country? Is it the ones that can actually feed apps that are over 100 MB, or can we go to a world where, for example, Uber Lite, which is a 5 MB version, can give you the same access as the larger version? So there are roadblocks in terms of how technology expands within the country. But I believe, speaking in terms of the digital ride-hailing industry, we are taking this as an opportunity to actually innovate and expand. I'll let Kenneth add a bit more to it as well.
Kenneth, I'd love to hear, can I get a Bolt in, say, Nyeri? Are you doing transformative works there as well? Or is this just a thing that's limited to Nairobi?
I mean, thank you very much for your question, Baraka, and thank you very much, Brian, for going first. Really, just to add on Brian's point, I mean, frankly, we haven't had any blockers to growth, at least on our side. I mean, this is a big compliment, definitely, to the government, to the ICT ministries, very much because of Safaricom and Airtel and all these players and home fiber and all that. They have really made the connectivity in Nairobi amazing. But definitely, Baraka, to your question, of course, you will be able to find Bolt across every major urban center in Kenya, from the coastal town of Mombasa all the way to Kisumu. Every major urban center along that, from the sea to the lake, you will find Bolt in under 3 minutes. Because really, the internet connectivity in Kenya and the cost of access is very competitive across many of the big metropolitan centers in Africa. really speaking about hindrances to growth, the only hindrance to be growth will be lack of innovation and lack of adapting to local needs. But this is one of the things that we were able to bypass by really seeing that a lot of opportunity in Kenya was really, for instance, in the two-wheeler segment. And it will have been so fast to plateau on the just relying on 4 cars. But really, when you tap into the two-wheeler segment, that also was just like an amazing catalyst, really, in adding dignity, in adding safety, in adding economic opportunities to the border segment, really. So that was like a huge accelerator other than a hindrance. What would be one possibly will be like very, very restrictive regulations. But we're happy that the government is really, I mean, we are pro-regulation and the government is also very collaborative. And because of the public participation processes and engagements with policymakers and drivers, then we are able to collaboratively influence policies that would be beneficial to the sector as a whole. Mainly just leveraging on the principles of equity and fairness, such that the policy does not punish innovation or technology unfairly.
All right, thanks, Kenneth. I think, let me just ask maybe Naserian to chime in. But in this instance, we had maybe Brian, I don't know if it was Brian or Kenneth, talking about how cab drivers do specific trips. Like if you're working in Westlands, but you live in Limuru, you take a trip there and carry someone along. And that's very interesting. And Matthew talked about how her friends are developing an app and everything. The gig work is a very interesting space. What are some of these interesting stories you've had, maybe in ASEAN, or maybe someone saw your work online? Because I've not seen you in the newspapers, but I've seen a lot of your work on social media. And so I know you're a good when it comes to makeup artists. What are some of the good stories you've had so far?
So first of all, I'd like to start from where we as Kenyans are. I think we're a very reserved nation. So when I picked up this makeup artistry job, it was quite challenging because I think we've seen online people saying, Mimi bado sipendi makeups, yeah? So that has been there, and it's really taken a lot of, like online videos, tutorials to try and show women and basically ladies that makeup is not bad. Makeup is something that goes, it boosts your, esteem, your confidence. So it's really taken time to actually get to where we are right now, even as a nation. If you know very well, you know that when you tell your parents that I want to really be in the beauty industries, you can actually identify with what the answers would be back then. But right now we're embracing the beauty industry, and it's becoming something that people actually know can make money and can give you, something at the end of the day. So one of the most encouraging stories I have had, I remember when I joined the industry, I was coming from a corporate world, an IT company, and I just decided that I needed to actually concentrate on my passion, which was beauty, because I have a passion for young girls. So for me, it was what can I do to actually boost confidence amongst these girls and to just make them feel like they can be listened to, that I can walk around and no one will look down upon me. So that is how I ended up taking up my passion and to just turn it into a business. I started training young girls and just making sure they have that extra skill. I remember I trained a few girls who had just finished class 8. And, so many of those girls who at the end of the day, they'll send you stories and testimonies that, you know what, at least we have food on the table. Because I believe at the end of the day, skill, if you have any kind of skill, you will never go hungry as long as you're very aggressive. So it's been quite something to see that someone who didn't have anything, and I mentored them and trained them, that they can actually be on social media and they have a clientele and they have a business running because we believed in their passion. Baraka.
All right, is Gift still on the call? Gift, if you can chime in, what's been an interesting story you've had about the gig economy? Perhaps you can share.
Sorry, just say that again, Baraka.
What's some of the interesting stories you've encountered or you've heard about in this gig economy? What's an advantage of it?
Cool advantage. There's a lady who works in my office. Her name is Janet. The good thing about it is she actually works for 4 different companies. We didn't know that at the very beginning. She used to give us certain work hours to work with. So she told us like every week she's going to give us 5 to 6 hours. The thing that became quite interesting enough is the day we found out at an event that she was doing work for these guys. And the key thing about it actually worked 12 hours. She was able to actually balance her time with the element of freedom. So one thing would be she'd be able to do some work from around 8 to around 9 or 10 o'clock during the day. Then she moves on to a second client and to another client and the like. But the good thing about it is what she really benefited from one was she was able to actually well balance her time. A key thing being that she was able to homeschool her child, which was something that she's really passionate about, but she wasn't able to do beforehand when she was employed. Number two, even with COVID being there, she works well from home. So she is always more of a client service kind of person. So she ends up actually just doing her phone calls, doing her emails from home, supervising what's happening through her child during the educational phase. But more importantly, it's the money she's been making. So she said the same lifestyle, same minimal costs, and managed to get income from 4 different channels, which would have been very different had she chosen to just work for one employer. So for me, I think it's a testament of if you actually balance your time well, if you actually are flexible and can actually well dictate your working hours, you can make the most out of it as a gig employer and live a fulfilling life. Yeah.
Perfect, man. Frida wants to answer a question here about the blockage that's faced by taxi people, and then I'll hand it over to Emma to pick up after that. So Frida, are you still here, or have you managed to reconnect? Perfect.
Yes, I'm here now. Thank you, Baraka. I wanted to add on to that question about the challenges or the blockages that we have found as online workers, and I would mention 3 very quickly. So number 1 is actually regional discrimination. So most freelancers would get into the platforms, but sometimes the clients are very discriminatory in terms of where you're coming from, where you find jobs that you're qualified for, but they are very specific to the fact that if you are not native, then you cannot work on the same. So that affects the consistency of some of the Kenyan online workers. The other thing I would say as an online worker, those who have transitioned into businesses, their challenge is quality. So nurturing the talent again, to give consistent quality to your client, that becomes a challenge. People are always talking about, young people are always saying that there's no jobs, but then I have realized that most of the time you'll give them the opportunity, you'll give them the chance to work with you, but after 3 or 4 days, they want something different and just leave. So that that bit of quality talent is also a challenge. And then lastly, it's trust. So creating trust, it requires heavy investments. So remember the reason why we are able to work with global clients is because there's someone somewhere who has created platforms that create trust, that ensure that there are contracts, ensure that people are paid and people are working. But now as a business, freelance business or an agency, creating the same kind of trust would require heavy investment when it comes to the technology part of it. So for us, I think those are the 3 main challenges that we face as online workers. Thank you, Baraka.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Frida, for that. I'll be taking over from Baraka. Sorry, I dropped off abruptly because, as I had suspected, my fear for connectivity issues, materialized. So as we are almost at the end of this session, and before I give my vote of thanks, I think I'd like to give this chance to anyone who'd like to say something, especially with regards to what you think about the future of gig economy is, according to you. Do we have anyone who can just give us a brief summary about the future of gig economy? Yes.
Yes, definitely. I think this is Brian.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Go ahead.
One aspect I wanted to mention was I think when we speak about gig economy and gig workers, the one thing we need to realize is quality of work. Because it's one thing to be in this space, it's another thing to ensure the quality of work is maintained. And for more often than not, you realize that quality of work is always intertwined with formal employment. But if we think back to what are these concepts under formal employment that actually realize this safety net, I think these are aspects we can actually achieve in the gig economy. One of them being, example, is health. For the most part, if you ask many employees, one of the biggest benefits they get from employer is health insurance. One aspect we've actually been trying as much as possible to achieve as Uber through what we call our partner injury protection that ensures that your trips are actually insured. Another aspect that's quite keen, especially when you look at formal employment, is upskilling, which I think is critical in your way of actually growing as an individual or as a business. And a platform plays a critical role in that. This is the only way you can be able to actually bring in other corporations and other platforms who can actually help upskill the gig workers in your platform. Case example being at Uber, how we realized from the get-go that money management skills are very important. It's one thing to earn on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. It's another thing to be able to actually manage these finances to help you improve and grow. So I think my parting shot would be gig work. The gig economy is actually growing. We are at the fourth industrial revolution. Our degrees of separation have minimized. And it's high time we actually realize that the security that is realized in formal employment is very achievable in the gig economy, and something that once we collaborate, once we partner with the government to level this playing field, we should be able to achieve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian, for that. Do we have anyone else to just give their views about the future of gig work?
Emma, if I may jump in just after Brian.
Yes.
I think, as Brian said, first, gig economy is here to stay. It's not just a pandemic thing. It's a full-time thing that's going to go forward. It's only just become more prominent now for the pandemic. But just very keen, with freedom comes responsibility. There's always going to be the option of someone else, right? So it's not the protection you have for formal employment, whereby there's a whole recruitment structure, there's a whole vetting thing. The time you actually explore, you're given several warnings, it doesn't work that way. The economy, someone gives better quality work at a more affordable rate, it's easy for you to be let go. So I'd say with freedom comes responsibility. Just to add on to what Brian said, there has to be a consistency and a quality of work that is always going to be noted. That way you can actually now either get more clients or retain the clients that you actually do have. Yeah, that's what I'd say as a close.
Emma, I'd like to compliment.
Okay, thank you for that gift.
Just to wrap it up, I'd like to compliment what Brian and Gift have mentioned, and just especially leverage on the element of responsibility, which is one of the things that we've already started seeing early signs of it. And as governments and regulators become more aware of the gig economy space, then this becomes a particular area of collaboration for us, giggers and technology players, with governments, such that how can we deliberately stop governments from playing catch up and actually be forward-looking in terms of making more inclusive, more fair, more consistent, more equitable regulations for giggers. I mean, with this in mind, you will see the circumstances coming up in California, for instance, in London, in the most recent classification risks which are arising in terms of what level of influence do platforms have on gig workers. And so what we're seeing and what we're anticipating and what we are proactively engaging in is just trying to get ahead of the curve. Like Brian said, this is we're living in the middle of another revolution, the fourth one. And with this one, we have to be deliberate as giggers and as people in the tech space to engage with governments to actually influence and curate frameworks for the future. The other thing, of course, we will expect to see is more interconnectivity between platforms, such as in the fintech area. Like, for instance, one of the things and in the safety area as well, one of the things we've done as Bolt is to integrate with one of the companies that provides on-demand ambulance services or on-demand security services. And ambulance and security dispatch, you wouldn't think that it will actually leverage on technology, but you almost get an under 5 minutes ambulance dispatch during any SOS or security emergency case. So just those two parting shots from my side, more interest from the governments and more collaboration with us and governments to curate regulations for this, and then definitely more interconnectivity between platforms.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have Dr. Ehud Gashugu, who can give us a final remark with regards to the future of the gig economy.
Thank you, Emma. My apologies. I don't know what's really happening with my video. So I look upside down, but so allow me just to switch it off and I'll fix it in a short while.
Don't worry. Go ahead.
Just to sort of chime in on the conversation, and it's been a very impactful and empowering conversation this afternoon. We do think that as a country, we are now ready to fly. For the last couple of years, we've been slow and in terms of talking about the importance of gig, what's really required to move everyone on the gig, and the conversations today have focused more on what should an individual do, what should we do at the enterprise level, but also what should we do at the ecosystem level. And then I think all these wheels must fly together, must move together, so that we can move forward with the urgency that's required. So two things for me, I think as we continue to enjoy this evolution, the need to really ensure that there are strong social protection mechanisms that ensures that gig workers can access the different services. And I like what Brian talked about health, which is key, because as we continue to dignify this work, to talk about decent jobs for youth and for gig workers, there are certain elements that really must come at the forefront to avoid being in a situation where we are putting people in a more precarious situation. The second and important element that I see would be critical is how we coordinate ourselves. Of course, we do propagate self-regulation, and government is doing a lot towards that. But even us on the other end, in the private sector, we must think carefully about how do we coordinate our efforts so that then there's unified approach to issues. There is a space for innovation and expansion, but more importantly, maintaining consistency and quality. From the private sector perspective, we are keen to continue working with all of you, with everyone in the gig economy, to unlock the opportunities and potentials that that are available here in the private sector. So thank you very much, Emma, and we do look forward to these engaging conversations as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ehud, for that and for summarizing this session. So I'd like to thank everyone for availing us your time to be with us here. We discussed, or rather took a deep dive into one of emerging issues for our youth and the vulnerable people in our communities, and that is women. And I feel that we have covered most areas that we wanted. I'd like to thank Jonathan Donner for such a lovely presentation. As I had mentioned before, Jonathan is collaborating with Kala in developing key insights about the future or even the current state of the gig economy in Kenya. Thank you so much for your time. And I'd also like to remind everyone that we have a recorded version of this session on YouTube. So you can kindly check it out once we're done, and feel free to share that also with your network. Thank you everyone for your time. Baraka, do you have something to say?
I think just to thank everyone for your time and for your information. This is, like I said, it's going to be the first of many of them. So look forward to more interaction from us guys. If you can this weekend, please take a boat, please take an Uber and support some of our very own over here. And yeah, bless you all guys.
Okay. Thank you and have a lovely afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting, Kala. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, team. Have a good one.
Okay, bye, Gifts. George. George.